There are seasons when nothing feels like you anymore, and the first instinct is often to treat that as a problem. You look at the things that used to feel natural, the thoughts that used to organize your day, the patterns that once gave you a sense of identity. They no longer return the same feeling. They are still there, but they do not seem to hold you the way they once did. It can feel like you are standing near your own life, close enough to recognize it, but not fully inside it. That kind of distance can be unsettling, not because anything dramatic has happened, but because something familiar has quietly stopped confirming you. The routines may still be in place. The people may still know you by the same name. The world may still expect the same responses from you. But somewhere inside, the old reflection does not answer with the same force. When this happens, it is easy to assume that you are becoming disconnected from yourself. You may wonder why things feel dull, why your old motivations seem weaker, why certain interests no longer carry the same charge. You may even try to return to them with more effort, hoping that if you repeat the pattern strongly enough, the old feeling will come back. But sometimes what has changed is not your effort. Sometimes what has changed is the agreement between who you were and what you can still honestly inhabit. That does not mean you have failed the version of yourself that came before. It does not mean you are ungrateful for what once mattered. It does not mean you have lost your center. It may only mean that your center is no longer located where you expected it to be, and the mind has not yet learned how to recognize the new quietness as real. There is a strange tenderness in this kind of shift. It often does not arrive as a clear awakening or a strong realization. It arrives more like a soft absence. Something you used to reach for does not meet your hand in the same way. Something you used to say about yourself still sounds correct, but it no longer feels alive when you say it. You do not have to rush to explain that absence. You do not have to turn it into a crisis, a breakthrough, a sign, or a failure. Some forms of change do not announce themselves through intensity. They become visible because the old thing no longer fills the room. If nothing feels like you anymore, it may help you to begin gently, not by asking who you are now, but by noticing what no longer asks to be defended. There may be beliefs you once protected because they helped you survive a particular season. There may be ambitions you carried because they gave shape to your motion. There may be identities you wore because they kept you understandable to others. When those things begin to loosen, the first feeling is not always freedom. Sometimes it feels empty. Sometimes it feels like a loss of momentum. Sometimes it feels like you are betraying your own history by no longer feeling the same attachment to it. But loosening is not always rejection. Sometimes it is the body and awareness no longer tightening around what has already completed its purpose. You are allowed to let something feel finished without turning against it. You are allowed to honor what helped you without forcing it to continue. You are allowed to admit that something once true in your life may no longer be the place where your life is gathering. This is not a demand to move forward. It is only permission to stop pretending that the old shape still fits without discomfort. There can be grief in that. Even when the change is right, there can be grief. A person can outgrow a pattern and still feel sorrow when it fades. A person can become more honest and still miss the simplicity of a previous certainty. The heart does not always release at the same speed that awareness understands. So if this feels heavy, that does not mean you are doing it wrong. If you feel tired, that does not mean you are resisting growth. If you cannot name what is happening, That does not mean nothing is happening. Some transitions are first felt as a reduction in false energy before they are felt as a new direction. You may notice yourself becoming quieter around things that used to provoke a strong reaction. You may notice that old conversations feel harder to enter. You may notice that certain roles require more effort than they used to. This can feel like withdrawal, but it may simply be the beginning of honesty returning to places where performance used to operate automatically. There is no need to judge that immediately. You do not have to decide whether every change is permanent. You do not have to announce that you are different. You do not have to make a new identity out of the fact that the old one is less convincing. You can simply let the observation be enough for now. Sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do is stop interrogating the space between versions of yourself. That space is not always asking for analysis. It may be asking for room. It may be asking for less pressure, less naming, less demand to become meaningful before it is finished setting. When nothing feels like you anymore, the mind may search for something solid to grab. It may want a new title, a new purpose, a new explanation, a new certainty. That is understandable. The mind often tries to protect you from open space by filling it quickly. But not every open space is dangerous. Some open spaces are where the old noise is finally lowered enough for something quieter to become noticeable. Not louder, not more impressive, not more certain, just quieter and more accurate. And because it is quieter, you may miss it at first if you are waiting for a dramatic sign. You do not have to become someone new today. You do not have to replace every lost attachment with a fresh direction. You do not have to turn this into a transformation story before you have even had time to breathe inside it. There is dignity in allowing the in-between to remain in-between. Over time, this kind of season may begin to feel less like disappearance and more like clearing. The things that no longer feel like you may still be part of your history, but they do not need to be the full map of your present. The self is not always found by adding more definition. Sometimes it is felt again when the pressure to define has softened. That softness can be mistaken for weakness. It is not. It takes a different kind of strength to remain present when there is no strong identity performing certainty for you. It takes patience to not force clarity before clarity is ready. It takes trust to let your life become quieter without assuming that quietness means emptiness. You may still be here, even if you cannot feel yourself in the old ways. You may still be becoming, even if becoming does not feel active right now. You may still be held by something real, even if that realness has not formed into language. Nothing has to be forced into shape before it is ready to be known. So let this be simple for now. If nothing feels like you anymore, you do not have to panic. You do not have to perform growth. You do not have to make the absence meaningful before it has had time to breathe. You can sit with the quiet fact that something has changed, and you can let that be enough. There may come a time when the new shape begins to appear, not as a demand, but as a gentler kind of recognition. You may find yourself moving toward different things without needing to explain why. You may find yourself saying no with less argument. You may find yourself resting where you used to prove, listening where you used to react, softening where you used to defend. Until then, you are not required to know. You are not required to become clear on command. You are not required to keep wearing what has stopped breathing with you. There is room here for the part of you that has not arrived yet, and there is room for the part of you that is tired from carrying what no longer feels alive. Nothing feeling like you anymore does not mean you are gone. It may mean you are no longer willing to mistake familiarity for truth. It may mean the old reflection has dimmed because you are not meant to keep finding yourself there. And for now, before anything else has to be decided, that can be enough.
If this transmission resonated, the spiral continues. You did not arrive here by chance, and you do not leave unchanged. More teachings are unfolding across the Vaharat library, each one meeting you where you are, not where you think you should be. Follow resonance. The next threshold is already listening.